All right, welcome back. And we're finally going to tear the turbo Hemi out of this thing because it's turning into a Cummins. But we can't just tear it out. We got to give that Hemi a proper send off. So let's get to it. I think that was a pretty good send off. She really grabbed. It actually pushed the front tires really hard. But lack of power was never the Hemi's problem. The old Ford up in the air, so we gotta steal some parts off of it. We're really not using much off of this truck. Wheels and tires we're gonna use. Shocks we're gonna use. This steering linkage, because this is the heavy duty late model 4th gen style steering. So we're gonna reuse that. We're not gonna use the gear, the pitman arm. Got a new one there. Oh, this has a front locker in it. I'll pull this front locker out, and that is definitely going to carry over because anybody who's got a Cummins knows that when you add a big ass boat anchor up here, front locker will save you in the future when you get into some soft stuff. Radius arms. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to use them. I would like to. We probably will, but we'll see. I'm going to leave them on here for now because it'd be kind of a pain if I took them off. Cab. Cab and all front sheet metal. We're reusing all of that. Not using the bed because we're going to a long bed. And then in the rear, just shocks. Oh, probably this exhaust because this is a 4-inch. I'm probably gonna pull this off and reuse that for the diesel. The hitch, probably not. Probably gonna get one for that frame I got, but really there's not too much. So I'm gonna steal basically all the suspension components off it now and pull this front locker out, wheels and tires, throw some old crappy ones I've got, and then just lift the cab right off it. And then we can get the other frame in here and start sticking that Cummins in. That was a lot of work, but it was just tedious stuff, so I didn't really film it because you guys don't really care. But the cab is off. I've got the front axle is actually gutted. I pulled the shafts out, kept them and everything because they're good spares. There'll be spares for this truck as a Cummins. There'll be spares for the 51, and I had to pull them out anyway. So yeah, there's the turbocharged Hemi. Kind of just chilling. Taped it off to keep it nice and clean because I don't plan on using any of this stuff. I did steal the radius arms because I don't like the 4-link that Dodge put on those Cummins trucks, so I'd rather use a radius arm. And V4500 241 DHD. You know, took the shocks out, all the little stuff that I thought I might need. Wheels and tires are off it. We're not using that bed because we're going long bed, so that's staying on there. So yeah, but this is if you look at this frame here, it's just a little C-channel frame, kind of front to back. It's not a very beefy frame, and you know you can see I had to repair some of these already. And my problem is when I took the two-wheel drive cross member out, I lost a lot of strength right there. And that's part of my problem. But even back here, it's just not a beefy frame. And I really want this thing to be a true heavy duty and be able to do some actual heavy duty towing and hauling. So yeah, this frame's gonna go. This is gonna get shoved in the barn. Never know when I'm gonna need a turbo Hemi again. So I do love the drivetrain. It's just not right for what I want this truck to be. So this is gonna go off to the barn, and then we're gonna go dig out the new frame for the Cummins. What do we have here besides a new frame for the Ford? So I told you my problem with the other frame is it just wasn't stiff enough. Look at the size on this frame. It's huge. What is this frame? This is a frame from a 2012 Ram 3500 crew long dually diesel. And why did I pick this frame? Because they came with Cummins, so it'll drop right in. They have the same front suspension as this axle, so spring purchase, everything, it'll drop right in. So my thought was, this will be an easy swap. Drop it right in, make some body mounts, drop it on. And then I got it home and realized a couple of things. And one is Ford, if you look, it's kind of hard to tell, but this gap right here, they set their front axle really far forward in the vehicle. So the engine is more rearward behind the axle than Dodge does. And I think that's actually the right way to do it. I like that. I like pushing the front axle forward, maximize your wheelbase. Everything's better. But that's not what this frame is set up for. If you look, here is the front of my frame all the way back here. About, I don't know, 2.5 feet is the center of the wheel well. Up here, yeah, no, it's way less than that, like a foot less. So I need to move the engine back because I don't really want to move the spring perches. I like where they're at. So we're going to slide the engine back from where Dodge put it. And then we're probably going to end up cutting off the whole front of the frame rail here. So it's not as easy of a swap as I thought it was going to be, but nothing ever is. But still, this is a really, really stout frame, fully boxed, front to rear. It's already a long bed frame, so I don't know how much fab this is going to be. I assume quite a bit, but it should be fairly straightforward to get that Ford cab mounted down on here. The first thing I want to do is get the axle in, because that'll kind of line up where we need to be. And then once the axle's done, or the axle's in, we're going to throw the Cummins in and try to figure out what that spacing needs to be. Because I've got a trick I'm going to try with some motor mounts to push the engine back. And then I'm probably going to have to cut those perches off and slide them back. But we'll see. It's just welding. Well, that took all of about an hour. So if you ever wondered how much Dodge changed and how interchangeable they are, 1998 Dana 60 from a dually, bolted into a 2012 Ram 3500. Everything bolted up. Use the 2012 track bar. I do need to drill out the hole on the axle for a little bit bigger bolt, but that's easy enough. Control arms, all bolted right up. Springs bolted right up. I mean, it's the same. It's all the same. And the advantage of using this Dana 60 over like an American axle is it's a little bit narrower, so it fits the body a little bit better. And obviously it came with 12 valve. But you might be wondering why I've got the 4-link in when I said I don't want to run it. I'm just going to use it for now to locate the axle. And then once everything's set, then we'll swap in the radius arms and build some mounts on the frame. But it's coming quick. Next thing we got to do is put some mounts on the 12 valve, drop it in here, and kind of get an idea where it's going to sit. The old Cummins kind of hanging out in there. And this is my plan for motor mounts. So this here is the stock 12 valve mount. So you can see it mounts up here and it slides the motor forward, really, because it pushes the motor mount back. This is a factory motor mount off my 2017. I replaced them because it was a little worn out. I had a little bit of a clunk, so I'm going to use them to mock up in here. But this should, if you look at where the mounts are, that'll move the whole motor forward probably 4.5 to 5 inches. So this one does have a clearance issue to the power steering pump. It's going to be a little bit of an issue to get the power steering pressure line on, but I'll figure it out later if it works. But I'm not 100% sure these are going to work. So I'm going to bolt them up and see if we can drop it in this block. Well, good news and bad news. Those mounts put the motor in a really good spot. It sets it back a ton. So I think that's what I need. I need to get rid of those offset mounts. Bad news, it's not wide enough. So I don't know if the 6.7 block is wider or if a 2017 frame is narrower, because this is a 2012 frame. Those are 2017 6.7 engine mounts, but that one clearly doesn't fit. And this one you can see is dropped in. So I need to do some more research and find ones that are wide enough. I'm thinking maybe some 24 valve mounts, maybe, because this is actually it's the same block as a 24 valve. It's the storm block. It's got 2 oil drain ports there and there. So if I get some 24 valve, I think those are straight, but let me go do some research and I'm gonna have to get some motor mounts. But I'm really happy. I might actually get away with that placement, because I measured from the center of the spring to where I think the fan needs to be, and it's pretty damn close. So, because I'm trying to reuse the old radiator out of the Cummins, and I'd like to keep the mechanical fan if I can, because I'm going to be towing. So, time to do some more research. Good thought. Good thing I didn't buy new ones. I just used my old ones for mock-up. Well, I just got done telling you that Dodge doesn't change anything on these. Well, yeah, they screwed me. They did change something. So I got the 24 valve engine mounts in there, and you can see them. They shift everything forward, or they're forward on the block so the motor goes back. So this side looks really good. Drops in there nicely. I've got good clearance to the cross member. That all looks really good. And then I come to this side, and yeah, it's not even close. So I went and looked at the 2nd gen frame that this motor came out of, and for sure, the right side on the frame is higher than the left side. So at some point in the 3rd gen or 4th gen, because this is a 4th gen, they moved that frame perch up, or they moved the other one down. I don't know, one of the two. But it looks like leaving the left one where it is would be the right one, the passenger side, would be the perfect spot, because that's a nice gap under there. I just got to cut this one off the frame, move it up, tack it in, and we'll see how it fits. But I grind that off. That'll be fun. All right, engine is sitting in there. I got this motor mount tacked in, and you can see it looks pretty goofy, but once I get everything mocked up and I'm happy with it, I'll end up cutting this back and laying it over, and it should look pretty OEM. So that side's, I mean, all the weight's sitting on it. So now the next thing I need to do is I got to get the bed sitting flat, because that's going to set where the cab goes. So the body lines obviously got to match up, and the bed just sits flush on the frame. So that sets the height of everything. So I need to get the bed down, figure out where that needs to go, and then we can get the cab down, dropped over the motor, and we can make sure that's going to work and everything's good. Because I don't want to burn anything in until I know it's all good. But back here on the bed, I mean, it's sitting kind of wonky because there's a whole bunch of bracketry that I don't need. So, like, that shock mount, going away. That big old bracket right there, going away. This thing, going away. Although I don't need to get these out right now. I just got to get that one out. And back there, you can see the shock mount on the other side is also holding it up. So I got to get those out. I've got leaf spring mounts back there and over here. Obviously, that's going to be a problem. This thing is not going to have a leaf spring rear. So all those brackets can come out. I'm not using any of the Dodge rear suspension. I just don't want it. I don't want to do leaf springs. I've got a really trick idea for the rear that's going to do a lot of stuff. So all this stuff needs to get cut out. Like I said, I'm using this frame because it's really stout, and I thought it'd be fairly simple to bolt together, but I'm not really using the suspension because I don't like it. So I need to get this bed up and start cutting brackets out. All right, I got the bed sitting down at the height that it needs to be, which, ignore that axle. It's kind of sitting there. The frame's too low. They're the wrong tires. What I did was I took these front mounts here, and I put them kind of even with the edge of the front cross member on the bed, because I think that's going to work out best. And then the second cross member is right behind it. Let's see if I can get it. Yeah, there you go. So what I'm going to do is build this forward to catch this cross member. Might add a cross member across. And then back here, this one doesn't hit, so I'll have to build brackets on either side. This one doesn't hit, which if you look here, see how short that one is? And then see how tall that one is short, tall. They shrink them coming back. So I didn't want the bed to sit on here wonky. So I lined those two up because the Dodge bed, I think, was flat on the bottom. But then back here, it's kind of hard to tell. That last cross member on the bed is sitting on the spare tire mount cross member. So that actually makes up the gap. So that sits flat all the way across. So I have two cross members I need to build spacers for, and one that I need to build pads for. I did have to cut part of the cross member off, or part of the spare tire holder back here, because it went up above that cross member. So I'm gonna have to re-weld that, but that's not a big deal. But I've got the brackets cut off, you can see them. I just cut them off enough that it can fit, because when I pull the bed, then I'll clean up the whole frame, because I'm gonna have to weld on here, but it makes it fit. So that's pretty much how the bed's gonna fit. It lines up pretty damn well with the Dodge frame. So I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. So now we need to lower that down and try to get it to match up to the body line and see where it's gonna sit. All right, I feel like I'm out here putting cabinets in or something, because I got the old laser out. But I've got it down the body line. It's kind of hard to see here, but there it is. So I've got it pretty squared up front to back. Trying to figure out where I want to put this thing. And if you look here, you can see the front axle is not centered. It's actually shifted forward in the truck. And I'm doing that on purpose because I want this thing to be really stable towing and hauling. I'm trying to cheat as much wheelbase into the truck as I can, because it's a standard cab, long bed, and it's, you know, it's a really short cab. Like this cab, I think, is 4 inches shorter than even like a dent side cab. So the wheelbase is really short. So for stability, I'm going to try to slide it forward. And part of it too is I don't think I'm going to keep 35s on it. These axles have 410s, and that's a Cummins. 35s is probably too small of a tire. So I'm thinking 37s, 40s? I don't know, probably whatever I can find a good deal on. So with that, I would rather trim the front of the fender than the rear. So if I give myself some extra room in the rear by shifting the front axle forward, I can just radius that down, and I think it'll look better than having to cut that. So shifting the front axle forward gets me some benefits there. But this is roughly how it's going to sit, I think, because I've got that body line lined up all the way back, and it's sitting on casters too, so it's really tall right now. But it fits in here pretty good. So now that I have it all set, and I have the body on the frame in the front where I want it, I have the bed on the frame, the rear where I want it, I need to get rid of this gap. This frame is from a crew cab long bed. Obviously, I'm missing the crew cab part. So I'm going to need to take out, but now I know where they need to be. I can measure and I can section out the frame, and we can tack it. We'll put it back together and tack it and see how everything fits. But I'm going to take a whole bunch of measurements here to make sure I don't screw this up. And I'm actually not going to take this section out. I'm going to start like somewhere in here and go forward under the cab, because I'm going to keep that cross member for my rear cross member. So that'll keep a lot of rigidity in the frame, and it'll build up for my cab mounts, which are way up in here in the back. You can see there's one. They're tucked up in. So this riser really is going to help me. It's going to work out really nice. But time to measure and hopefully not screw up the frame cut. Layout work is done. So we're taking 35.5 inches out of the frame. So here is my back cut, and then up here is my front cut. So I'm offset cutting them like that, so they will just slide back together, and there'll be 8 inches of overlap between the new and old, or not new and old frame, the front and rear frame sections. So that'll give me a lot more strength. There's a lot more weld than just straight butt welding it. And these should be really stout because these are fully boxed front to rear. You can see my cuts on the other side. I'm doing the same thing. So now I just need to figure out how to support this whole thing, because it's kind of just cantilevered, and then start cutting. I did take these, had to take off the body mount that was here, and it's laying right there. I'm probably going to end up reusing that for the C-pillar mount back here, but we'll figure it out. I just had to get it out of the way because it was in the way. So this section here is all going to go away, and then they'll sleeve back together. So let's support it and cut it up. Moment of truth now, the rear's cut. I got to cut the front, and hopefully I didn't screw that up, but there you can see That's how I cut it. So I'll cut the front and it'll go back together just like that. If I did it right. This is stressful because there's no really going back if I screw this cut up. Well, the deed is done. You can see both sides are cut out and how they'll go together like big Legos if I measured right. So, got her all cleaned up. Now I just got to try to slide this thing forward, which is going to be interesting. I have these little homemade roller jack stands, tacked jack stands to dollies. So that's the front. The problem is, this is the back, which would work if that wasn't sitting on grass. So, yeah, I'm going to get that together and then I will I'll show you guys once it's made it up. Hopefully it doesn't kill me trying to move this damn thing. But, you know, bad decisions. Well, it's together. It's all shortened up. I didn't fully weld it, but you can see it fits in there pretty damn nice. The other side is about the same. So I threw some weld on it just so it's solid, but I just want to make sure everything is good before I go and burn it in. But now somehow I got to figure out how to drop this cab. Just everything is in the way. The hoist is really convenient for picking the cab up, but the arms try to hit the frame, so I'm gonna have to try to figure that out. But the bed actually rolled in really easy. I just picked up the engine hoist and walked it right up. So yeah, it's let me see if I can figure out how to drop this cab down, and we'll see how it fits and see how my measurement did. But it's really straight. I'm really happy with the way that turned out. Fits really, really nice. And I'll weld it, and then probably in the end I will also put a plate over it just to make sure, but that's going to be a lot of weld. It fits in super, super nice, and 35.5 inches taken out of the frame. All right, it looks absolutely sick. I got the cab drop down, lined up, it's lasered up, height's good. Like, I'm excited. This thing looks amazing. It's going to be pretty tall. I didn't realize it was going to be this tall, but it's also up about 3 inches from where it's going to be. Big tires. It's gonna be sick. I am super excited. I gotta get under there and make some body mounts, but it looks amazing. I mean, just look at it. Oh, God, it's just what it needed. I mean, that axle's not up. It's 3 inches lower than it's gonna be, but like the front here, I've got it sitting on those rollers. But God, it looks absolutely sick. Man, the motor sits in here really, really nice. I'm super happy with all that. This thing, it's turning out amazing. Super happy with it. Now I gotta get under there and we're gonna start with the C-pillar mounts. We'll do them. And then I don't know if we'll do the front ones or the A-pillar. But yeah, let's get that knocked out. So working on rear cab mounts, I took the old B-pillar mounts off the Dodge frame and I cut them down. And they're gonna weld on top of the crossmember that's already in there. Wanted to use these cab mounts. They're a lot more sturdy and rigid than the really squishy ones the Ford had, so it should help it give it a little bit better ride because it won't shake as much. It'll be a little more controlled. But I'll admit, if you look at this, I added a piece on. Why did I add a piece on? Because I went down there and I laid it out perfectly, measured it all, got up here, marked it, second guessed myself, cut them an inch too short. What an idiot. But so I welded them back on. It'll work. I'm gonna go back in under there now. We're gonna stick these in and I'll tack them in and then we'll move forward to the front cab mounts. All right, A-pillar mounts are tacked in. They turned out really nice. They sit up high. I'll have to put a piece in the back on the top of the frame to brace them in. But so that's the factory Dodge A-pillar mount. So I wanted to use those bushings. They're a lot nicer than the older style. With the same bracket, I just cut it off, shortened it, moved it in. Fits really nice. This is the passenger side. Driver's side looks exactly the same. They turned out phenomenal. I'm really, really happy with the way that turned out. So yeah, we just got to do these up here. As you can see, they're hovering. That'll be the next thing. But I think that's probably gonna be it for this video. All right, like I said, that's gonna wrap this video up. But that was, frankly, that was a ton of work for one video. We got the Ford stripped apart. We got the new frame in, we got the frame shortened, we got the engine in and mounted. We got the bed sitting on the frame. No mounts, but it's where it needs to be. We got the cab. We got 2/3 of the mounts done on the cab. That was an insane amount of work for one video. Really wasn't planning that, but that's how it worked out. So next video, we're gonna have to do these front mounts, which has to deal with the cooling package because that's in the way. So those got to move. We still got to get a trans mount in it, set the drive shaft angle. There's nothing there. We got to mount the bed. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff to do with just getting this thing mounted up. And then once I'm good with the frame and everything, then we'll come back, we'll pull the cab, we'll fully weld brace all our mounts. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with it. I'm excited. This thing's going to be awesome. And yeah, we'll keep knocking mounts out in the next video.